While we have finished the majority of the interchange between Abram and Lot, their discourse, the text goes on to tell us in verse 14 of Genesis chapter 13, as we finish out the chapter, the text does not end there. It continues to tell us really about the Lord's interaction with Abram, which I think again is very telling, because the point I've made in the previous two episodes is how Abram is walking with God through the midst of this whole family tension with Lot. And Lot chooses a worldly way. He separates from Abraham to pursue the allure of success, and really great wickedness ends up being his result. Yet Abram is walking with the Lord, and what we read as we close out chapter 13 today makes that very clear. Verse 14, the Lord said to Abram, after Lot had separated from him, lift up your eyes. Now, I want to pause right there. Lot lifted up his eyes to the plain in which Sodom and those worldly cities were. God tells Abram to lift up his eyes, but look at what the difference is. Abram is not looking up of his own accord, and he's looking up in promise of what God is going to do. Lot looks up in lust of what he thinks he can grab. Let's continue here. Lift up your eyes from the place where you are, northward, southward, and eastward, and westward. For all the land that you see I will give to you and your offspring forever. I will make your offspring as the dust of the earth, so that if one can count the dust of the earth, your offspring also can be counted. Arise, walk through the length and the breadth of the land, for I will give it to you. So Abram moved his tent and came and settled by the oaks of Mamre, which is Hebron. And there he built an altar to the Lord. Abram, again, throughout this whole interchange, he's walking with God. God has him look up. His eyes are not looking up in lust of what he thinks he can grab, but rather it's looking up in faith, and looking to the promise that is coming, God's promise. Not only that, it talks specifically about how God is going to give this to his offspring, and his offspring is going to be huge. It's going to be like the dust of the earth. It's going to be vast. I just can't help but wondering when I read that, what's going through Abraham's mind? Lot has just separated from him, the younger member of the family. God had promised that he was going to make this great nation from Abram. I wonder if Abram up to this point had thought that maybe that was going to happen through his nephew Lot, that God was going to grow the nation in a way maybe through him. I don't know. The text does not tell us. But I wonder if I was Abraham, I may have been thinking that, and I'd be here now after Lot is separated, kind of going, well, Lord, this is horrible. My family's away from me. How are we ever going to multiply and be this great nation you've promised? Here I am kind of living on my own in the woods, so to speak. And here God comes to him and says this, and if I was in Abraham's shoes, I think I'd, in a sense, kind of be walking on clouds. A reaffirmation of God's promise. And then God sends me out on a little hike, to hike through the length and the breadth of the land, and tells me to look all around at it, and I can dream about it. And Abraham continues his nomadic life. He moves his tent yet again and settles by the oak of Mamre, which are Hebron. And Hebron is a very important area throughout the Old Testament. And I won't go into all that right now, but I will say this. Hebron is the first place that David rules the land of Israel. Well, Judah, technically at that point. But it's the first place that he rules from 7 years before he rules a united kingdom. So continuing on, we see that Abram builds an altar to the Lord here. He continues to follow in the Lord and walk with the Lord. So in application as we close, I encourage you to pause and spend some time with the Lord in prayer, thinking through this one question. Are you looking up for the allure of what you can grab like Lot? Or are you looking up in faith at the promise of God?